Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so I want to sincerely appreciate and thank the organizers of this program. I thank you for inviting me to speak, and I thank Prof for having taken the first part of the presentation. So I invite you all to join me for the second part of the presentation, where we're going to be talking about communication in the family, communication between the parents and the children. So, sorry, is this working? Okay, so we're going to use this outline. We're going to be talking about the importance and ways of communication. We're going to be talking about communication styles in the family, the barriers to effective communication between parents and their children, the strategies for effective communication, and then how we communicate with our children across their different age groups. Then we're going to be talking about the role of technology in family communication, which is very, very important in this technology age. And then we're going to be talking about the impact of positive communication on children in the home, and then we'll conclude. So by means of introduction, I want us to reflect on some questions. I want us to think about, I don't know if we've ever thought about language. Why do we have languages? Have you ever been in a place where you don't understand the language, or a place where you're saying something, you're trying to express yourself and no one understands you? Sometimes that is what happens with our children. Then, are you a good communicator? As a parent, do you think you communicate well? Do you think that all times when you talk with your children, they actually understand, which is the essence of communication? How do you communicate as a parent? Are you aware as a parent of the impact of your words on your children? Do we know that our children, whatever they do today, is based on what they think they are? And what they think they are is what we tell them. Communication, I'm just going to be repeating what Prof has already said. Communication is the exchange or sharing of information, thoughts, feelings between individuals. And in this case, we're talking about our children and ourselves as parents. So it's the basic building block for human relationships. And when we talk about human relationships, when a child is born in the home, the first relationship they have is that between themselves and their mother, themselves and their father, themselves and their caregivers, and then their siblings. So the family is a very, very important place where communication takes place. And the type of communication a child is exposed to in the family is what will influence how the person will develop their social relationships when they grow up. So it's very, very important that we pay attention to communication between ourselves and our children. Communication is always a two-way process. There's something we call the communication cycle. Most times as parents, we just keep instructing, we talk, talk, and talk. We don't even allow the communication cycle to go the real cycle. Like it's just us, from us to them. You're constantly talking. You're not even waiting to see if the person you're talking to understands what you're talking about. So in that instance, we say that the cycle is not complete. So it's something that we should pay attention to. Then we're going to be talking about the different levels of communication between us and our children. And the essence of this slide is to tell us that there is a level of communication from superficial to deep. And as parents, our aspiration is to go to that deep level of communication where you begin to understand who your child truly is. Most times, communication in the family just remains at the functional level. Let things be moving. Have you eaten? Is there food? Have you gone to school? What did you score? We rarely get to this level 5 where we share our inner feelings with our children, or where we give them the opportunity to share their own inner feelings with us. So for us to be successful, for us to have transformational families, we have to move in our communication with our children to get to this 5th level of communication where we are authentic with our children. We are able to share our feelings. We're able to share our past experiences. There's this thing about children thinking that their parents are all perfect. They don't make mistakes. It comes from a place of not being authentic in your communication with your children. I remember one time, myself and my son were talking about something, and he now said, "Oh, you and daddy, everything is going well. You're a doctor." He's a doctor. I was like, "Nah. If I tell you the number of times I have failed I am nowhere near perfect." So it's understandable. People can make mistakes. The most important thing is for you to know that when you make a mistake, you learn from it. So never view me or your daddy as perfect people. We are not. So it's until we get to this fifth level where we're able to share our failures and how we learned from them, our children will never really be authentic. They can't really tell us everything. So these other levels are just superficial until you start getting to the level where they start sharing their experiences and ideas, their opinions. In fact, even some parents are threatened when their children begin to have differing opinions from their own. And it's something very bad. Every child, especially as they get into their teenage years, should be able to have their own opinion, their own perspective. If your child is always saying yes to you, there's a possibility that when they go out of home, they'll always say yes. Children should be allowed to have their own opinions. Our duty is to guide them to the right path. So the importance of communication between parents and children in the home. Communication helps us to instruct, to teach, to motivate and inspire our children. This is so key. Most times, the problems that parents have between themselves and their children is from poor communication. Most of the problems that children have, pre-teens, teens, is as a result of failure of parents to communicate things. We are supposed to instruct children. We're supposed to tell them our family values. We're supposed to tell them our vision, our mission, our goals, our aspirations. It is through communication that we even talk about the legacy which we are living, what we've been able to do. My grandmother, sorry to use, we're talking about the family. Growing up, my grandmother had 7 boys and 2 girls. I remember that we never spent Christmas outside of our village. Even if you don't have money, she will pay for you. And everybody comes home. Everybody eats from the same plate. Her legacy was that unity, that family unity. And up till today, all my uncles and aunties, the family is so close-knit. And for me, I have also transferred it to myself. I have already started talking to my children, intentionally making them to know that unity is the way to go. So if my grandmother was not intentional about communicating her aspirations, by now, I'm not sure there will be any unity in the home. So it's very, very important that anything you want, anything you don't plan as a parent, anything you want and you don't intentionally plan to talk to your children about it, I'm sorry, that thing will never hold. So we must be very, very intentional about telling our children. In fact, we market what we want to our children. You know the way Coca-Cola markets their wares, and anything you want, you must market. You must learn marketing strategies. You keep talking and talking. You keep repeating yourself until your children know where they are from, until they know what the family is about. If not, in fact, what do you even think the media does these days? It's the same marketing. If you're not doing your job, the media will do it for you. So there is need for us to be intentional as parents. Whatever it is that are your values, whatever it is that you hold dear, that you want to transfer to your children, you must actively communicate it to them. So these are all the other importance of communication. But the most important one is that as a parent, it is your responsibility to teach your child. And then when we have problems with our children because they are not able to do some things, we should turn the searchlight on ourselves. Where do children learn skills from? From the home first, before the school. If your child is always late to school, you haven't taught the child the skill of time management. So when you think about the problem, when there's a problem, when you observe your child and notice all the problems, ask yourself the question, what is the basic problem that is missing? What is the foundation of this problem? Once you identify it, you go to work as a parent and start teaching your child how to overcome that problem and not complaining and complaining. Then ways of communication, like Prof has already said, we have the verbal communication where we use our words, the words we speak, the tone of voice we use, and then the non-verbal communication, which involves our body language, like when a child is talking to you. In fact, there's something my children always do. Because I always smile. Once I'm talking to them and I'm not smiling, hey, mommy is angry, mommy is angry. What did you do? What did you do? So when you fold your hands, you're communicating that you're not open to what someone is saying. And then for little children, when you're with your height and body stature, you're towering above them and then you're talking to them. Sometimes they may be scared. So there is need to come down to their level, give them eye contact, smile. In that way, what you're saying will be received more adequately. And then listening is also one of the key ways of communication, because we said that communication is a cycle. I say something, the person I'm talking to is hearing it, they are trying to understand what I'm saying. And then sometimes they even try to ask me back to make sure that they understand what I said or give me an answer to what I'm telling them. So in the family, it's very, very important. Okay, first of all, in listening, another thing that happens to parents is when they are not empathetic. Children are foolish. Children do a lot of annoying things. Children can get on our nerves. But we have to be empathetic as parents. We have to remember that they don't know and they are under our care. For us to guide them is a process that takes a lot of years. So in their foolishness, we should show empathy. Our aim at all times will be to teach and to instruct, not to punish or to castigate or use bad language. So anytime there is something wrong that the child has done, we have to learn to be empathetic. And then when they are talking to us, we should also listen. There's this thing about being impatient with children when they are talking, especially maybe those that talk, like complain a lot. Sometimes you see that you're impatient, but empathy calls us to be patient, listen to them, and then reflect on what they have said. Try to understand them and ask them, is this what you mean? It helps a long way. And then remember, we are role models to our children. The way we communicate with our children is the way they will communicate. So if you see a child that is always shouting, just know that there is somebody that is always shouting at home or where the person spends time a lot on. If you see a child that is always calling names, there's somebody they are learning it from. Children don't just start behaving anyhow. There's always a model. And sometimes we are just modeling unintentionally. So I am telling you, ladies and gentlemen, today, that we are role models to our children. Whatever you do, however you behave, you're communicating to your children, whether you're saying it or not. So let's be very intentional with our children. So we also should be aware of the personality of our children and our own selves. When it comes to communication, there are people they are extroverts, they are expanders, they talk very well, they talk in details. As a child is coming back from school, you don't even need to ask a lot. The child has told you everything that has happened in school. While there are some that are more of introverts, they are called condensers. They don't talk too much, they just give you the minute detail. So for such children, as a parent who is intentional, you know that you should bring in conversation starters. You should keep asking so that you, if not, a lot will be happening with such children and you wouldn't know anything about it. Now, let's talk about the various communication styles that parents use. This closely resembles the parenting styles. We have the authoritative parents, and this is where we all aspire to be. Those kind of parents that are firm, they are firm but fair. They are always consistent. The rules in the house, the routines, they consistently make sure that children follow through. And then they give children the opportunity to express themselves. They are open to dialogue. They are open to let the child express themselves. There is healthy conflict resolution. It's the kind of family where a child can walk up to the father or the mother and say, see, daddy, this is what happened. I don't think it was fair on me. And then the parents will listen to the child, understand the child's perspective, and resolve the conflict. So this is where we all aspire to be. Then you have the authoritarian. They are the only people that have a say in the home. They're always directing, talking. They don't care about what the child feels. They don't care about the child's preferences. They don't care about the child's wishes. You know, for such families or for such people that practice the authoritarian form of communication, they don't think about the passions of the children. Your child may love playing a musical instrument, but because you want to prove, you have a point to prove. No. Playing musical instruments will take away your time for study. I want you to be the best. So in that way, that child's passion will die down because the parents want, it is only what he wants that happens in the home. So, and such families, you find out that most times the parents are verbally and emotionally attacking the children. So there is dominance, you know, it's just them. It's only just the parents that have a say. So what happens? It can make the children to be very fearful. They can't even say anything. And it reflects in their social relationship outside. You see children, they can't even stand up for themselves. They can't even say, people will be doing things to them because they've already been, what's that word? Conditioned from the home that they can't say anything, that people just tell them what to do and they do it. You see them not fighting for themselves. You see them not expressing their opinions. So it can also lead to resentment. By the time they grow up, by the time such children grow up, you see they are resenting their parents. They don't want to have anything to do with their parents. For those that can muster the courage, you see outright rebellion. They become very rebellious. So such families, the environment is always toxic and hostile. There is no open and honest communication in such families. Then you have the permissive type of parenting. In this type of parenting, the parents are just there. They just flow with whatever happens. There's no accountability, no consistency. You know, they are just so lenient, no enforcement of rules and authority. Such parents avoid confrontation. They can't make their children accountable to the rules they've already instituted in the home. And what's the effect? Such children lack boundaries. Sometimes they are outwardly disrespectful. So we don't encourage this form of communication style. And then the worst is the uninvolved. Some of them will be at home. Some of those parents will be at home, but they don't know anything that is happening with their children. They are so uninvolved. They are detached. They have minimal interaction with their children. They tend to be neglectful, inattentive to the needs of their children. And the effect is that these children feel neglected. They don't feel supported because their parents don't even know their needs, talk more of fulfilling them. So I brought out this slide to let us know that for every family, there is a pattern of communication. In fact, for every behavior, there are patterns. So, and if we're not aware of our own patterns of communication, we may be doing something wrong and harmful to our children without our knowledge. So we talk about the families, the pattern where families they encourage openness. People are openly expressive. They talk about their needs. They talk about their feelings. They talk about their experiences openly without feeling judged. You see, such families encourage open dialogue and there's emotional sharing. In such a family, you see that children tend to be more stable. In school, they tend not to into trouble a lot because they are emotionally stable. Remember, most of the attitudes that people display comes from their minds, how they feel within. It is what you feel within that you express and manifest. Then you have the more reserved family where you see people just everybody walks on eggshells. There's no serious communication. In fact, they just function, they operate on a functional level. Let's just let things just be happening. You will see in such families, people really don't get to know each other very well. And that is why when children grow from such families, you see people that when they leave home for 6 months, they've not communicated with their parents, and you'll be wondering. Then we have the third type that is very, very common and very dangerous. The negative communication pattern, characterized by criticism, a lot of blame, condemnation, shaming, name calling, and this comes from a place of parents not knowing how to communicate very well. And then it happens a lot with some of us. Because we have not done what we should do with our children, and we have expectations, and they are not meeting the expectations. So we just fall to the default of always criticizing. Some people have children that they call difficult children. They're always complaining about the child, criticizing, condemning. Such a child, what do you want such a child to do? Obviously, there's something that child needs that is not being met. There's something that child needs to know that has not been taught. So if we change from what we've been doing, condemning, and ask yourself, what exactly can I do? What can I do differently to help this child? We'll see that our approach will change. So it's important that we recognize all these patterns in our family so that we can begin to do the right things to impact our families positively. Okay, so we are going to be talking about the barriers to effective communication, lack of active listening. In the home, sometimes we are tired from work, and then our children are coming to tell us, hey, this person looks for my trouble, I'm looking for this thing, because of the mental preoccupation and overload, you find out that you're not actively listening to that child. And then sometimes the children can come to you. For instance, there are so many things we do in my house, but I find out that most times my children will be like, Mommy, you said you talked about our media plan, no pressing of phone, but you're pressing your phone. And sometimes I just find that I'm defensive. But this is something we have agreed as a family. So sometimes defensiveness is a barrier to effective communication. Then selective listening, you only hear when someone is, maybe when your child is talking, you're not listening to everything. Once they say something that interests you pick only that thing. But in the conversation, there were so many other points. Some may even be more important than the one you're interested in, but you just pick up the one you're interested in. Then personal biases. My first son, there was a day I came into their room. I saw him with a laptop, and one of the family rules is that you don't stay in your room to use the laptop. So, because in my mind, I've already been told, I've already known that, or I already conditioned myself that the reason why I want these children to always be in a central place is so that they will not get into porn sites and all. So immediately I saw him, I was biased. That was what came to my mind. And I said, why are you in your room with your laptop? Am I even sure you're not watching porn? He just looked at me and laughed and said, Mommy, even if I was watching porn, I will not tell you. There is only one person I'll ever tell such things because he doesn't freak out. Remember the other day, just because I told you that I was intrigued by lighting matches, you were just screaming and asking me if I now want to start smoking. So sometimes our biases can affect how we listen to our children and how we react to what they've told us. Then misunderstandings and misinterpretations. Sometimes when we communicate with our children, they can, especially when we are not very clear, they can misunderstand us or misinterpret what we say, So we should always try to be as clear as possible. Remove any form of ambiguity when we are relating with our children. We shouldn't leave room for assumption so that there won't be misunderstanding. Then we'll talk about emotional barriers. This is very, very important when it comes to communication between parents and their children. Most times, because we work so hard, we come home tired and frustrated. And when a child comes to talk to you about something, You see yourself reacting from a place of tiredness, a place of, and in fact, sometimes some of us resent our children, especially the ones that don't do what we like or what we want. You see that your relationship with that child comes from a place of resentment. I didn't know about this until recently when I saw the concept. I started watching myself. You see, like it's something that you may be doing without being aware. Some of these things is when you now start becoming self-aware that you start noting. And you know that if any person you resent, it shows when you're communicating with that person. It just shows somehow. And if you resent someone and you're communicating with the person from that place of resentment, what you want, you can never get it because you're not communicating effectively. It's a very big barrier to communication. So we should all be aware of that. Then anger, excessive anger. Parents should learn how to manage their anger. An angry parent can never be a good parent, because children don't know a lot. It's our duty to teach and guide them. So if a child is always doing what they do as children and you're always getting angry, there's no way you will teach that child. So we should learn to be calm. We should learn how to comport ourselves. And then, if you're angry, always angry, you won't even pay attention because it's in allowing your child to be himself that you get to understand who that child is. What you don't understand, you can't help. So if you're angry, always frustrated, you don't pay attention to that child. You don't know what you need to teach that child, and it becomes a very big problem. So another barrier to effective communication is technological distractions. Phones, TVs, games. Our children will come and talk to us. We are pressing the phone. They are talking to us. Most of the things they are saying, we can't hear and we can't help them. So it's advised that once a child comes to talk to you, drop your phone and give the child the full attention they deserve. Recently, I was in Lagos and I visited my auntie. All the times that we were in the house, she had 2 children in the house, and I went with my own children too. From the moment we came in, the children came down and greeted me. I was just noting, all my own sons went up to the boys' room. The girls remained in their different rooms. They had TV everywhere in their house, even in the kitchen. The way my auntie was talking, like affluence. This thing about affluence. Nneka, we have TV everywhere. Even the house in Ozobolo now, we are going to put TV everywhere. I was just, at some point, I said, Auntie, I want to talk to Kosio. How come? What is she doing in her room? My auntie said, oh, she's there. She's probably watching one of her TV programs. At some point, I told her, so auntie, this is how you people stay in your house. Like everybody's in their own space, watching one thing or the other with internet everywhere. I just told her, do you know what they are watching? Like, how did you people have a family time? How do you people interact? She now said, hey, Nneka, it's true. Somebody once told me that thing. Like, maybe we should. I told her, auntie, I know there is money, but in the next 5-6 years, these children are going to leave your home. And if there is no bonding, no communication, you've lost them. I think it's good to have TVs everywhere if you must, but have hours where you must switch off and everybody come down together to bond as a family. So, and this is what is obtainable in most families in Nigeria today. I don't know if it's if people think it's a thing of affluence. I don't know, but it's really very sad because if you don't create, like I said before, if you're not intentional, anything you don't intentionally teach, you will lose it. So if you're not intentionally telling your children that face-to-face communication is important, with time, when they leave your house, they may not even bother to visit you in 5 years because that's what, I mean, if I'm in a house where in the morning, I don't see my mom or dad, I just stay in my room. There's no difference now when I'm outside the house. So it's just the norm. So it's one of the barriers of effective communication. So now let's talk about strategies for effective communication in the home. Connection, connection, connection. I think connection is the bedrock of communication between parents and their children, and even between spouses. What is connection? Like I said here, there is no communication without connection. We're talking about emotional connection here. We're talking about actually listening to someone. The only way you can get connected with someone is when you are there to hear what the person has to say. Even as a teacher in a class, anywhere, as a parent, if you're not connected, if there is no form of connection between you and the next person, whatever you're saying is just won't be taken to heart. And this thing about parents always talking and talking, if you're always talking and talking, you can't connect with your children. Real connection is where you slow down, back off, and allow the child to talk. By the time they keep talking, you begin to recognize who your child is. You begin to understand how they reason. In fact, we should, as parents, be students of our children by observing them talk. That's the only real way you can connect with the children and know who they are. And that calls for a lot of opportunities where you people go out to talk. It could be through one-on-one outings. It could be through in the night before they sleep. You come to their room, small chats, and in such small moments, they reveal their hearts to you. They tell you their innermost secrets. So it's very important spending quality time together and spending it intentionally. Knowing that is not that, when we talk about quality time, some people will say, I'm giving my children quality time. They will still go out and be the ones talking and talking. So that quality time, allow the children to be themselves so that you know who they are. Then the second strategy is clear communication. There needs to be as clear as possible when you're communicating with your children to avoid assumptions. Then perspective taking, empathy, that's consideration. When your child talks, fine, they can be talking nonsense, but it's important to at least step back, put yourself in that child's position, and try to understand what the child is saying from their own perspective. When you now understand it from their own perspective, you can now begin to guide as the parent that you are. Then we should also be very careful about decision making in the home. Some parents neglect their children when it comes to decision making, and it's very, very bad. You see, sometimes holidays are being planned, children are not put into the picture. On the morning of the holiday, you now tell everybody, dress up, we're going somewhere. You're not even helping the child in any way. So, in fact, our role is not to continue managing our children. Our duties as parents is to keep guiding these children so that at some point they'll become independent. So when we keep micromanaging them by not getting them involved or listening to them in the decision-making process, it's to their disadvantage. Then conflict resolution is another strategy for effective communication in the home. So when there is conflict, our aim should not be to escalate the tension, but rather to douse it. So we should always be willing to find acceptable solutions when there is conflict in the home, either between us and the children or between the children themselves. And we should also, how we handle conflict is how our children will learn to handle conflicts among themselves and with their friends outside. So conflict resolution is a very, very important aspect of effective communication in the home. Then the role of consistency. We can't even establish any rules or regulations or routine in the home if we're not consistent. So there should be consistency in behavior and communication, and it fosters predictability. A home where children are in should be a very predictable system. Children should be able to wake up on Monday and know that, okay, Mondays I do this and do that. This is my routine for Monday. There shouldn't be surprises. It doesn't help the children. Then we'll talk about communication across different age groups. Excuse me. For young children between the ages of 0 and 5, when we are talking to them, the first thing is to make sure that we use language that they can understand. Simple language. We come down to their level. We talk, we should be mindful of our tone of voice. Say, thank you. Don't use technical words when you're talking to small children because they won't understand. And the essence of communication is for them to understand. So when you're talking with these young children, you use more of play. Okay, you want a child of, let's say, 1 year to pick up their toys when they finish playing. It's not the way you tell a 10-year-old to pick up their toy that you tell a 1-year-old. You can use games. Let's pick up our toys, pick up our, you do things that will get the child interested in what you're saying. Then for those between the ages of 6 to 12, at this age, the children are very, very curious. They want to know so many things. They ask you, mommy, why? There's always a lot of need for you to explain and explain and explain. And it's very good because a child who knows the reason why they are doing something is better than a child who knows how to do that thing. If you can always, and some parents are not happy when their children are always asking them why. They feel that the children are questioning their authority, and it's a very bad thing. We should encourage children to ask questions. Children who ask questions a lot they increase their curiosity levels. And with increased curiosity, they can do a lot of things for themselves. So we should encourage curiosity. When they ask us questions, we should answer. We should also ask them questions. When children come to you to ask you something, even if you want to answer it, after answering it, ask them questions. The aim is to increase their worldview and all. Then for adolescents, those between 13 to 18 years, they are beginning to have their growing independence. It's the period where they are reflecting, trying to know who they are, their preferences and all. So it's not a period where parents force children. It is a period where you step back as a parent. In fact, the best strategy for this age is less talk. Less talk. You just watch the child. They do what, because at this age, it's assumed that you've taught. At least if you've been proactive, you've taught them something. So you just step back and watch. Your duty now is to understand. Okay, so this is how this child thinks about this. This is how this child thinks about it. Okay, so this is what I need to teach this child. And let me tell you, people need to be very proactive when they communicate with their children. What you want to tell your child, there's a way you put it, that child will buy what you're trying to say. But if you just come and say, if you find a problem, okay, let's say you notice that your child doesn't think that because someone is poor, they should steal, is something bad. If you notice that, it's not a time for you to start quarreling and talking, and it's for you to go back. So this is how this child thinks. So that means there's a foundational problem. So I need to talk to this child about integrity, honesty. You develop your plans, come up with your arguments, because at this age, they already have the ability to reason. They're beginning to be logical in thinking. So it's not a period where you keep scolding and talking and talking. So what we should be at this age is a supportive guide, and try to maintain open dialogue. At this age, there are a lot of things associated with teenage age. You see a lot of misbehaviors and all. So the role of a parent is to manage your emotions as a parent. Because if this period is not managed very well, it can lead to a degeneration of the communication between the parents. So it's a period that we talk less, give her a fair hearing, and then give them a lot of affection, even though they may act as if they don't need it, but they do need it. Then, role of technology in family communication. I believe that every family should have their media plan, how they communicate, and they should communicate what they have planned. They should make the plan with their children and then communicate it with their children consistently. If not, I don't know. Because in the hospital where I work, Sometimes you'll be teaching students. You will see that even in the classroom, when the lecture is going on, people are pressing their phones, they're on social media and all. So this is the time as parents for us to establish boundaries about the use of technology. There should be time for everything. If we consistently market it and sell it to our children, by the time they get out of the home, I believe that they should be able to be responsible enough to know when to use their phones, when to use their gadgets, and when not to use it. So the good thing about technology is that we can, when we're out, we can talk with our families, but it also comes with then the internet. Every knowledge you want is one click away from you. So it's a good thing, but it also has its own risk. For the phones and the TVs and the games, it can lead to reduced face-to-face interactions like we talked about before. And then misunderstandings too. Sometimes there are some things that, there's some information that when you go on the internet is wrong, and if we don't tell our children, if they don't know, they can easily get wrong information from the internet. So there can always be misunderstandings if you're not there to guide your child properly. So there is need for parents to set boundaries when it comes to the use of technology. We should establish rules around screen time and use of digital devices. We should also instruct, it's our role to instruct our children on the use of internet. We must let them know that the internet does not forget, that whatever you put down in the internet haunts you. So we should make it our family rules that you don't post on the internet unless you have something meaningful to give to the world. If you don't have something meaningful, you don't have a business with the internet. You just go to the internet. If it's an assignment, you do your assignment and go. The internet is not a place to open up and start watching people. For you to get to the internet, you have to have something positive you're giving to the world. If not, you're not up to the age to use internet unsupervised. Then the impact of positive communication in the family. It helps in building stronger relationships because it increases, when communication is done right, it increases the trust and emotional closeness that we have. Then it promotes mental and emotional well-being. It helps in developing social skills like we talked about. So now we have 8 tools of effective communication that we use in our families. The first one is active listening. We've talked about it. When your children are talking, listen to them attentively, no interruptions, no biases. Just listen and make sure you understand. No preformed conclusions. We listen attentively to them. In that way, we know what they need and we can help them. Then nonverbal communication, we've talked about it. Using open nonverbal communication, eye contact and all. Then Prof also mentioned the I statement. When we teach our children how to use the I statement, it helps us to reduce and helps people to genuinely express themselves how they are, not wanting to condemn. Then the need to show empathy. This is the place of perspective, looking at things from your child's perspective. Then we also talked about open-ended questions. When you ask your children open-ended questions, it encourages in-depth discussion with the child. And from that, you understand who your child is and know the places where you have done well and the places where you need to teach the child more. Then there is need for family meeting. And under this family meeting and every other thing that encourages quality time together. It is in such meetings that problems are addressed, issues discussed, and then the family works together. Then the need, apology and forgiveness is also an effective communication tool in the home. We should all teach our children, we should all learn and teach our children how to apologize and forgive. It's only in an atmosphere where people know how to apologize and forgive that relationships thrive. And then setting boundaries. As parents, there's need for us to set boundaries because it helps family members to establish, everybody knows the expectations in the home. There are no surprises. So in conclusion, communication is the basic building block of our relationship. Effective communication is the cornerstone of harmonious relationship between parents and children. We are all encouraged to embrace the transformational family relationship, which fosters personal growth, emotional well-being, and unity within the home. This form of relationship inspires and empowers every family member to fulfill their potential, making the family a nurturing environment for individual success and collective happiness. I leave us with this thought from the Bible. James 1:19. Remember this, my dear brothers. Everyone must be quick to listen, but slow to speak and slow to become angry. Ephesians 4:29. Do not use harmful words, but only helpful words, the kind that build up and provide what is needed, so that what you say will do good to those who hear you. Proverbs 18:2. Fools find no pleasure in understanding, but delight in airing their own opinions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Kajutan. Thank you so much, Dr. Nneka. Wow. I was seated and I was just thinking, imagine every parent in Nigeria, in the whole world, as a matter of fact, keyed into programs like this. We'd definitely have a better world. But it's one step at a time. Thank God for Parents First. We have listened to Professor Kajutan. We've also listened to the wonderful presentation coming from Dr. Nneka. Now it's time for questions and answers. I'm sure some of us have burning questions, and this is the time to directly connect with the speakers. So we'll start with us here in the building. If you're joining us virtually, if you have any questions at all, you would also be given the time. All you need to do is wave, and you'll be given the opportunity to talk directly to the facilitators. Do we have any questions? All right, sir.